It's not often, is it, that Fleet Street acts in concert?
Yes.
They're normally at each other's throats. But this morning, thanks to an organisation called the News Media Association, which is the kind of the overall overarching body, there's a front-page campaign. Every single front page, Susanna's got them here, in Fleet Street today is exactly the same. It's this campaign to stop artificial intelligence nicking stuff from artists.
It's not just the national papers, it's the regional papers as well. So the Birmingham Mail,
Hackney Gazette.
Every paper will have this on their front page today. And it is a first, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember it happening before in, 41 years of journalism, and if it hasn't happened then, it hasn't happened. But of course, it's not artificial intelligence itself, it's the companies behind artificial intelligence which are going to make money out of it, and they're going to just suck up everything that has been creative throughout history and then monetise it for themselves with all the artists, the brains, whether you're an author, making films, music, journalism, whatever it is, they're just going to rip us off.
Under this exemption, under copyright law. Everybody else is still bound by copyright law, but artificial intelligence, the suggestion is, shouldn't be.
Well, and this is because this government is going too far to try and help companies like Meta, the big internet giants. We think now there's a puff of smoke potentially they're going to back down us, because it's everybody. It's from everything from Elton John to the Gloucestershire Echo to Kate Bush is saying you can't do this.
So let's have an example. So, for instance, would it be that the big tech companies would scrape everything you've ever written, Kevin, and then they would say, right, I want to, you'd put into your AI generator, I want an article written by Kevin Maguire on what it's really like to be behind the scenes at Good Morning Britain. Yeah. And it would just generate an entire article, perhaps with made-up quotes from people here.
There is,
sort of generating a completely fabricated story, but in the style. And you would have no power over what was written.
No, that's right.
But it would be your style, so people would be convinced it was you.
Because I know journalists who use AI in their work say it makes up quotes. Named quote attributes statements which weren't made. It's a real danger here. But, we could all be replaced by avatars just saying really whatever they think we would believe, and it may not be what we believe or say. And we know in music, you're right, the copyright exemption, at the moment you get court cases where an artist is accused of ripping off another artist's music, and it's, they listen and they settle it. But all that will go.
No.
You
could generate, Andrew, you could say, I want an Elton John song about my day at the office. And you would have AI generate Elton John singing about a day at the Mail.
And these, I've been to see several times the Avatar concert. An extraordinary achievement. There's the four of them in their pomp. We think it's brilliant. But is this going to ultimately take over? Am I soon going to be in this studio with Susanna Reid and Richard Madeley, the avatars? That's where this is ultimately going.
There is a website called Notebook where you can feed information in. We actually experimented with this a few weeks ago, just off air, just to see what it was like. We put in a brief. Overnight, we get briefs for all the guests that we're going to be talking to. So we put all the information of the brief into the system. Back came a radio programme based on that brief that was utterly convincing, with two completely artificially created presenters chatting with each other, riffing with each other about the questions they were going to ask this guest later on. Oh, and did you know that so-and-so? Yeah, well, apparently he's on his third divorce. And it sounded totally believable. And I said to you, we're over. In about 5 years' time, there will be a channel which has got an artificially generated breakfast show with basically robots presenting it who are believable.
But,
some people might like it.
And they might absolutely prefer it. I might watch it myself. But nevertheless, like the Elton John, produce an Elton John song about the cuts in bin collections in Bristol. You might think it's quite fun having what Elton John might sing about that. But if you're going to do that and you're going to use all Elton John's creativity, these companies should be paying Elton John.
They should.
They should be paying him some money.
Well, they should get permission and they should pay him.
Exactly. You can't just rip everybody off.
It will kill aspiring talent. That's the point. I mean, Elton John's OK because he's made lots of money, but rising talent will just be
But you're
snuffed
saying,
out.
and I'm reading this in the papers this morning, partly as a result of this coordinated campaign in every single newspaper in the UK and in many other areas as well, that it's likely the government's going to back down.
I think they're going to have to.
Yeah.
I mean...
What can the problem is, what can governments do when big tech gets so big that it goes beyond regulation?
The last government was useless at it, didn't take them on. They don't even tax them properly.
We're here now with what the internet giants, often from the US, allow on the net and what they don't. Horrible videos, how to take your own life, all that gruesome stuff. But it's a battle. It's a battle
because it's global.
Yeah, it's where countries have to come together to fight these big...
And
if only there was a family of European nations we could join.
And more than 1,000 musicians, including Kate Bush, Annie Lennox and Damon Albarn from Blur, have released a silent album in protest at these plans. Richard Arnold's going to bring us more on that, although I'm not sure you're going to hear very much from that silent album. But it's a really effective and eye-catching campaign. Goodness only knows if it's going to have any impact at all. You see Elon Musk in the White House answering questions.
Free speech. It's all about free speech.
It says it's all about, J.D. Vance says it's all about free speech,
but
less regulation.
It's not free because they're nicking it.
Well, look, in terms of things galloping ahead of us, it's very hard now to keep up with the American president. I mean, last week he was saying that Zelensky was a dictator, an unelected dictator. Yesterday, sitting next to Macron, the French president, he said that actually Zelensky is probably going to be invited to the White House in the next few days to shake hands with Trump over a deal over Ukraine. I have to say that I thought Macron's face was a picture. He clearly had no idea this was coming. He didn't know what to make of it. And it makes me wonder what's going to happen to our Prime Minister the day after tomorrow when he gets there. What will Trump come up with next? Yeah, well,
you've got a man toddler in there. If Zelensky was an unelected dictator, Trump would have been fawning all over him rather than giving him a kicking and basically telling him to give up 20% of his country to Russia, and meanwhile I'm going to pillage your mineral rights and going to charge you for weapons to survive. Starmer's got a hell of a job. They'll speak to Macron and find out what went on exactly, so they can try and avoid any pitfalls, push at any
Wouldn't you like
soft
to be
points.
on that conversation?
Oh, God,
Macron
you would. You would absolutely love it.
Did it not strike you? I found the whole handshaking, hands-on-knee kind of physical interaction. It was like two brothers, like, we're friends, I'm going to put my hand on your knee just to remind you who's in charge. It was very strange. I think at one point, Trump puts his hand on Macron's knee, Macron lifts it up and sort of, pushes it away
It was like an episode of Strictly Come Dancing.
Remember, this bloke used to present was it The Apprentice he presented?
Yes.
He did. And it's like he still is. I still think there's method in his madness.
Come on, you can't still...
No, look... European countries
we're
talking about raising defence spending.
And we have been for 3 years. And what we give away is still an issue.
But Zelensky now has it... If he wasn't focused, he knows that actually the war is probably going to end soon.
Yes.
Look,
because if America aren't going to back and roll it, he's got no hope.
Yeah.
And this is a war that... Look, Kevin, I don't support what Trump said, but this is a war that Ukraine could never win, and many people are dying, and
it's believed 100,000 men might have died fighting this war for Ukraine, and double that number for Russia.
And
the cost in terms of human life, how long can that go on?
So is Trump's shenanigans forcing this to an end game?
Trump's USA voted against a motion at the United Nations condemning the Russian invasion. I mean, that's it. Whose side is he on? Trump is on Putin's side now, not Zelensky. He's on the side of the aggressor. He won't call a dictator, but he calls a democratically elected president a dictator. He won't blame Russia for the invasion. He said it was Ukraine's fault. He blames them.
But how might that change if Zelensky agrees to a deal to allow America into Ukraine to mine these precious metals, these rare metals?
Well, that protects Ukraine, doesn't it? Because this is so much American money tied up in the minerals.
But it'll change the way Trump talks about him completely. He'll do another volte-face.
But again, that's going to protect... That's probably a surefire way of protecting Ukraine, because America wants to protect its...
Yeah, but what Trump does, he freezes the conflict so that Russia keeps it to 20%. Meanwhile, he rips off the rest of Ukraine. I mean, come on, that's...
but the number...
That is... you're talking about... How do you deal with an ally?
I get that.
I mean, it's imperialism.
But it stops more young men and women dying because we know Zelensky can't win this war.
I wonder, one of the massive impacts that Russia's invasion had was to shoot up energy prices.
Yeah.
And now we know that in 20 minutes' time, we're going to get the new price cap, and it's going up again.
Again.
I mean, these energy bills, which the manifesto promised would be coming down...
£300 a year.
£300 a year by 2030. I mean, when's that going to happen? Because we understand...
They're not even saying 2030 now.
Forecasting group Cornwall Insights, which is the group which is trusted to predict what's going to happen to the typical annual household energy bill, says it's going to rise by about £85 to £1,823. Now, this expected rise is because of an increase in gas prices across Europe, and that's caused by a slump in the amount of gas that's held in storage across the continent. I mean, we have a big campaign against gas right now, don't we? You know, and the whole push towards net zero. But, I mean, people cannot afford their energy prices. We've taken away the winter fuel allowance from 10 million pensioners.
Yeah.
Kevin, what are we... I mean, we'll ask the Home Secretary about this.
It's painful. That's an extra 80 quid. That's an extra 160 a week you'll pay. Before Putin's invasion sent world prices of oil and gas soaring, I think the cap was around £1,200. So it's now £800. It's half as much again.
Yeah. It went up to 2,500, of course, at the peak.
Yeah, it did.
And the Truss government, of course, capped it there.
It did.
But this is why it's important to actually expand renewables. Wind and solar. I know you don't like them.
No, they will be secure.
We've got North Sea oil and gas. Get it out the ground.
But there are times we get more than half our electricity from wind now. Now there are other days you get next to none.
Nothing.
And that's where you need a whole battery storage system so you can generate
and a nuclear option, which they are going for.
Yeah.
But listen to this. Viewers are taking this personally. Some of these messages. Chris on X says, well, so much for Sir Keir and his plan for change to put more money in the pockets of working people. Ha! Matthew on email. Sometimes my standing charges are more per day than my actual energy usage. Yeah. And Diane on email says, I'm 80. I have a really cold house. I hand wash my clothes. I think the Chancellor's got it in for me. They're taking it personally because they were promised on almost a personal level that things would improve. Yeah. And it hasn't.
No. Well, it's going to get worse. And it's going to get... And if you're on a fixed income, £85 a year more, where's it coming from?
Exactly.
The standing charges are a rip-off, but the reduction is over a longer term, or they call it short term, I think it's 5 years. Over a longer term, if you have wind and solar generating our electricity, we won't be victims of soaring international prices on oil and gas. It doesn't matter how much we pump out in the North Sea, because it just goes onto an international market. It doesn't come into the UK. Most of it is sent abroad for refining. It's not our oil and gas.
Yeah. And what if you're an elderly pensioner whose winter fuel allowance is taken away, who says, I'm not sure I'm going to see that benefit in 5 years.
Well, no, it was a terrible axe, the 300 quid winter fuel allowance, and people will suffer, and some people, hopefully not in this case, will die as a result.
This is going to push inflation up again. So many of these decisions this government take, pushing up inflation.
But it's not the government
even harder on pensions.
It's not the government putting up international gas prices. Remember that.
Can we talk about the crime and policing bill, which we're going to be talking to the Home Secretary about in about an hour from now? I'm fascinated by this because under the law at the moment, if somebody on a fast bike grabs your mobile phone when you're in the street, disappears into their house, and the tracker on your phone shows that that phone is inside that house, that stolen phone, the police can't do anything about it. They have to go and get a warrant before they go into the house. Well, this is going to change. Police are going to be given the powers to go straight in what they call the golden hour before the phone disappears to wherever, to get it back and make an arrest. But that does mean that getting rid of the age-old protection of a warrant. What do we think about that? Is it a fair deal?
I think it's a terrific idea, but I have very little faith it'll happen because there's no coppers around and you never see a copper. Who's the copper who's going to rush into the house in the first place? When did you last see one?
That is.
I mean, I support the principle completely, and I'm not blaming this government, but the last government run down the number of police officers so much. You never see a copper. We see coppers knocking on people's doors saying, hello, have you said something rude about a Labour councillor, as we saw at the weekend on Facebook.
Coppers.
It's a great idea, but I think it is an empty gesture.
Coppers can go into your house now if they think somebody's been attacked physically or somebody's at risk, and, you know, break the door down and get in. I think the crooks are the ones who hide behind this old school, you need a warrant. And in this case, I think it's really sensible. I accept you may not get a copper to do it, but there's lots in this bill that look like common sense. The Tories are calling it cut and paste and saying they would have done it themselves, but this government is going to implement it. For instance, 40% of vehicle thefts are basically people using some gizmo outside your house to get your key, fires back at your car.
That's happened twice to my daughter on our drive, twice.
Right. Now, you've got to be caught red-handed using the gizmo outside the house to steal the car. They're going to make possession of these devices a crime in itself.
Right.
And I think that is just so much better.
Like going equipped for theft.
Why would you innocently have something that could steal? Oh, because I didn't want to go in and get my own keys for my own car and I'm standing outside. I mean, look, you know, you wouldn't buy it. So I just think all those little things can make a big difference.
In her column in your paper this morning, Yvette Cooper says that the government is committed to putting 13,000 additional police officers, PCSOs and special constables into neighbourhood policing roles. So, Andrew, you say currently you can't find a police officer, but hopefully you will be able to find one.
Well, that's terrific.
I'd like to know the breakdown of that 13,000. How many of them are special constables who are part-time coppers doing maybe a day a week? How many are PCSOs, you know, who have limited roles, and how many will be actually boys and girls in blue who have the warrant card and the full powers? I'd quite like, you know, 13,000 sounds a great figure, but I'd love to know how it's broken down.
Also, significantly, and this, you know, this is a big issue for people as well, a specific offence of assaulting a shop worker is going to be introduced.
Long overdue.
And they're going to end what Yvette Cooper calls the Tories' ludicrous £200 limit, referring to the fact that if you shoplift and it is under £200, no action's taken, which often leaves shop workers. I mean, you know, we've all been there when there's been somebody, you know, stacking up a load of meals and taking them out, or taking a whole load of alcohol out of a shop, and the shop workers go, nothing we can do about it.
Well, I think they're told to do that because otherwise...
They're told to do that because they're not insured.
They're not insured.
And if they get injured,
not at risk,
but again,
no action's going to be taken.
But again, this is all terrific. If there's the manpower, woman power, the cops on the street to go and do it.
Back in the day, I was a security guard and I was on a pit.
Well, this is a revelation.
No, I was...
Is this on the Daily Mirror?
They put that paper down, they can't take it.
He'd have let all the criminals go.
It was the expenses.
He'd have felt sorry for them all.
I had a year as a security guard and a porter. When I was a security guard, I was once guarding videos, and they were worth about 400 quid each. And I was on about £2 an hour. And I decided if somebody broke into my factory, I, on £2 an hour, would help them load those 400 quid videos because I wasn't going to get bashed around the head by trying to stop it. And I think shop workers on little more...
It's one thing standing by while they do. It's quite another to admit you'd help them load.
But shop workers...
Tells you a lot about Kevin Maguire.
Shop workers on little more than the minimum wage. Why should they risk their health and their lives when people are shoplifting?
Kevin, I don't think they should load up the Getaway van. I don't think they should load it up.
If a load of people came in masks.
Well, it raises the question then, if they're going to get rid of the limit, what does a shop worker do? You know, if somebody's walking out of the shop, because, you know, somebody's got to
if you
make a citizen's arrest.
If you have security.
If you have, employee security, that's empowered. Have CCTV. Give the evidence to the cops.
You see five lads coming to Suma and one security guard. What can he do?
Speaking of crime and punishment, were you surprised?
He corrected himself with a her. That's pretty rare.
Were you surprised yesterday that Mike Amesbury, the MP, got 10 weeks in jail for this? I think we've got the footage of it. He got into a late-night brawl in the street. He'd had a few to drink. drink, and he got into a face-to-face confrontation with this guy on the left and ended up chinning him. Down he went, but he didn't stop there. He landed multiple blows, and it was a bunch of rather more sober men and women passing by who pulled him away in the end. Anyway, he's waking up in prison this morning. He's probably getting his porridge about now. He's appealing against the sentence. Were you surprised he got 10 weeks?
I was, because he pleaded guilty, and normally if you plead guilty, you don't get that length of sentence. He turned up in court, I'm told, without a bag. Normally, if you think you're going to go down and be sent to prison immediately, you take...
And he's appealed against...
I wonder if the magistrate decided because he was an MP, he has to be dealt with in a different way.
To set an
Lawmakers should not be lawbreakers.
But
to set an example,
he'll get paid while he's in prison.
Yeah, he will.
Which I think is wrong, but also I think he should... If he had an ounce of decency...
He'd resign.
Well, it would need
10% of his constituents to sign a petition asking for a
But they can't do that until after the appeal process,
he's going
to be drawing his salary for months.
This is another headache for Slama, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Unquestionably. Who suspended him once he saw the video. But you're right.
This is going to end in a by-election, in my view, and the longer he clings on, drawing his £91,000 a year salary in prison, more likely is somebody else wins the seat.
Yeah, well, the Tories aren't particularly reform. Labour can only claw it back if they get a real good local champion who's respected. But he should resign. He should go. That's it. Everyone who knew him, including some Tories, say he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
But he snapped. You can't do that in the early hours of the morning.
It's a novel way to engage with your constituents, isn't it? Bash them around the head 5 times.
One punch can kill.
Yeah.
You can't hit people in the head.
Absolutely. The magistrate made the point that he'd had people in court before where they had punched someone and it had ended in a fatality.
But he wasn't physically attacked. Now, the guy was apparently giving him grief over a bridge. Well, you're an MP. I mean,
we all get grief out on the street.
A bit of advice to MPs, don't go out on the booze till 2 in the morning in your constituency. Go to bed a bit earlier.
He swings the first punch, that's it, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, just one punch.
Mike Amesbury, it's all that. Yeah, well, he keeps hitting them on the ground.
He completely just boiled over.
No, that's horrible. It's horrible. You don't want to see yobs like that on the street.
Well, he's not on the streets anymore. He's in prison. So...
uncomfortable for an MP.
Yeah, very, very uncomfortable and difficult for the Prime Minister. Right, civil servants are complaining a rule requiring them to work in the office 3 days a week is actually making them less productive. There's a survey of 7,000 staff found widespread dissatisfaction with rules designed to make them go back to their desks. They said they struggle... Now, OK, you might scoff at that.
I am.
But here we go.
Scoff.
They struggled to find space in overcrowded offices and spent their days doing online meetings they could have done from home. Andrew, fair enough. If you're made to go back in the office, at least provide a desk. Then what is the point of going back to the office and then shuffling around, going, can I sit here? Oh, no, Susanna's there today. Or can I sit over here? No, Rich has just gone for his break.
And then if you're in the office and once you've found your desk, you're doing an online meeting. You know what I mean, if that is the case...
That's what they're saying.
If that is the case, then they have a case.
Yes.
But, right, but I can see there's a value of people being in the office
for cynicism here.
For some of the time.
No,
civil
but what
servants have been resisting going back to work. Since COVID.
They have.
And it was something very new that hadn't existed before.
Half of our ministries are empty.
I think we
every
have to get used to the fact people are working from home, and as a
we have to get used to civil servants who are paid by the taxpayer working from home.
Of people working from home, people have let go of office space, and
That's
therefore
true.
there are fewer desks to work at.
And it's not going back to work, it's going back to the office. Yes. Because they are working. You can tell whether people are online.
How many days do you do in the office, Andrew Pearce?
4.
OK.
Every week, 4. And sometimes I go in on Sunday as well.
So you have...
And if necessary, I will do 5, 6 days in the office.
So the 5th, you work from home. So 20% of your time, you work from home.
I go in the office sometimes.
To be fair...
Sorry, I feel a letter from Elon Musk coming on here.
But Richard,
justify your existence. Go on.
But when we're not on air, we work from home.
That's true, but when I was
we're extremely productive, I would say.
Yes, I'm a freelance, and therefore I'm entitled to work and how I can. But when I was on staff as a newspaper man and as a radio employee and as a daily news correspondent on television, I put a suit and tie on. I got into the office at 9 o'clock every morning.
I used to always try and get out of the office, get a job and meet people.
Just think, people who can't get their driving licence, can't get HMRC to answer the phone. Think about it. It's because they're not working. They're working from home. Yes, it is.
No, amazingly, telephones do work.
No, they don't answer the phone.
You want to do remote working.